Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're cracking open The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. And we've even got the study guide alongside it. Everyone knows this book is a classic when it comes to personal finance. But what really sets it apart is how it uses those parables set in ancient Babylon to get its point across. Really, who wouldn't want to get financial advice from people who were dealing with money before paper was even invented?
It really does make you think, doesn't it? Were they dealing with the same fundamental issues we struggle with today? Debt, saving, investing? These aren't exactly new problems.
Exactly. So before we jump into all the specifics like the 7 cures for a lean purse, can you set the scene for us a bit? What was Babylon like? What made this place so special? And why should we, thousands of years later, care about their financial wisdom?
Well, Babylon, which was located in modern-day Iraq. It wasn't just some, dusty old city. This was a bustling hub, center of trade and innovation. And get this, they were pioneers when it came to finance. We're talking coins as currency, promissory notes, even written titles to property. These are things we completely take for granted now. But back then, revolutionary stuff.
That's wild. It really makes you realize maybe we haven't come as far as we think we have when it comes to money.
Right. And think about how their wisdom was even preserved. Clay tablets, these things survived for centuries, buried in the desert, holding all these financial secrets that are still relevant today. It's almost like a direct line to the past. Like, they knew this advice was going to stand the test of time.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if those clay tablets are like the ancient equivalent of a diversified portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, Clason gives us this clear path to financial well-being with those 7 cures for a lean purse.
And the real beauty of these cures is how simple they are. They're like these universal truths about money that go beyond time or culture. So the first one, start thy purse to fattening, is all about paying yourself first, saving at least 10% of everything you earn before you even think about anything else. It seems obvious, but how many of us actually do that consistently?
I'm definitely guilty of letting that one slide sometimes. It's easy to get caught up in those day-to-day expenses. Forget about the bigger picture.
And that's where the second cure comes in. Control thy expenditures. The Babylonians, believe it or not, were big on budgeting. They knew you have to be able to tell the difference between your needs and your wants, and you have to know where your money's going.
So basically, they were doing what every financial advisor tells us to do today, no matter how much our income has gone up compared to theirs.
Exactly. And it's interesting, even back then, they'd figured out sometimes you got to delay gratification, can't just indulge every whim, you got to plan and prioritize.
Makes sense. It's about making your money work for you instead of you working for your money, right? Now, the third cure, make thy gold multiply. This is where things get really interesting for me because I love the idea of putting my money to work.
Well, the Babylonians, they were all about investing. But they were also pretty cautious. They understood that any investment comes with risk, and they really emphasized getting advice from people who had experience handling money.
So it's not just about throwing money. At any shiny opportunity that comes along, do your research, maybe get a second opinion.
Didn't they have a story about some guy who lost all his savings because he trusted the wrong person?
Oh yeah, there's a cautionary tale about this guy who entrusted all his savings to a brick maker. This brickmaker thought he could get rich quick, buying jewels overseas, ended up losing everything. It's a good reminder, even in ancient Babylon, there were scams and schemes to watch out for.
Ouch. That's a lesson you definitely don't want to learn the hard way. It's a good reminder that timeless wisdom applies to both good investments and avoiding bad ones. Absolutely. And that actually leads us to the fourth cure, which is all about protecting what you've already earned. Guard thy treasures from loss. Avoiding those get-rich-quick schemes, being wary of risky ventures, and making sure your investments are secure.
So a healthy dose of skepticism is always a good thing when it comes to finances. Sounds like the Babylonians were all about that slow and steady approach to building wealth.
They definitely understood. Real wealth, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes discipline.
Which makes their fifth cure, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Even more intriguing. Were they talking about flipping houses in ancient Babylon?
Not exactly, but they did believe in the value of owning your own home. They saw it as a way to build security and create a legacy for your family.
That's something that's resonated with people for centuries, hasn't it? There's something about owning your own place that just feels empowering, financially and emotionally.
Absolutely. It's about putting down roots and creating that stable foundation for your future.
Now, the sixth cure, ensure a future income. This one has me really curious. Did they have, like, some ancient version of a 401k plan?
Not quite a 401k, but they definitely understood the importance of planning ahead. This cure is all about making sure you have income, even when you're not able to work anymore, and making sure you've taken care of your family's well-being if something were to happen to you. Pretty remarkable they were thinking about this stuff thousands of years ago.
Makes you realize that some of our anxieties about the future are actually pretty ancient. They were dealing with these same questions about retirement and providing for loved ones.
Exactly, and it speaks to how universal these principles are. So then the seventh and final cure, increase thy ability to earn. This brings us back to investing. Investing in yourself, that is. The Babylonians were big believers in continuous learning and self-improvement.
So it's not just about managing the money you have. It's about always looking for ways to increase your earning potential. And that's probably more relevant now than ever in today's world, right?
Absolutely. They understood that the key to long-term financial success lies in always developing your skills and knowledge, being adaptable, always striving to get better.
Okay, so we've covered the 7 cures. They're like the foundation of Babylonian financial wisdom. But there's another level to all this, right? The 5 laws of gold. These sound like they hold the real secrets to their wealth-building strategies. And it sounds like there's a pretty good story attached to them, too.
There is. It's a great story. It's about this guy, Sharunada, super successful merchant, who wants to teach his grandson, Hadan Gula, the secrets to financial success. Now, Hadan Gula, he's inherited a fortune, but he's burning through it with his lavish lifestyle. So Sharunada, wise mentor that he is, decides to give him a bag of gold and a clay tablet inscribed with the 5 laws of gold to try and help him learn the ropes.
This Sharunada sounds like he'd be a fantastic guest. This very deep dive. That's such a clever approach, a hands-on lesson in financial responsibility, disguised as a challenge. So what exactly are these 5 laws of gold?
Well, that's where our journey continues. We'll be diving into those laws and uncovering their wisdom in our next segment, so stay with us.
So we left off with Sharunada challenging his grandson, Hadan Gula, to use these 5 laws of gold, to like turn things around and build his own fortune. It kind of makes you think of those like stories of self-made millionaires who started with just a small loan or like a simple idea.
It's a classic story, mentorship, resilience, and it shows how timeless these principles are. So let's break down these laws one by one. The first one. Gold cometh gladly, and increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Kind of a mouthful, but it basically echoes that first cure. Start thy purse to fattening. So it's all about setting aside at least 10% of your income for savings.
It seems like such a simple concept, but I imagine it was probably just as hard back then to resist spending everything you earned as it is for us today.
You're right, human nature. It hasn't changed that much, has it? We all want to enjoy the fruits of our labor. But the Babylonians, they get it. They understood that delaying gratification, that's crucial for building long-term wealth.
Makes sense. It's like planting seeds for a future harvest, right? Got to be willing to give up some immediate satisfaction for a bigger payoff down the road.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second law, which says, gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Basically, it's saying, put your savings to work, invest wisely, don't let that money sit idle, make it generate more money for you.
So not just saving, it's about being smart about where you put your money. I'm curious, what kind of investments would a Babylonian even consider profitable employment for their gold?
Well, they were involved in all sorts of ventures, trading goods, lending money at interest, investing in land and property. It's actually quite similar to how we diversify our portfolios today, spreading investments across different asset classes to manage risk and maximize returns.
Diversification was a thing even way back then. Makes you wonder if some of these modern investment strategies are really just fancier versions of what the Babylonians were already doing.
It's very possible. And it kind of reinforces the idea that some of these financial principles, they're just universal. They go beyond time and culture. Now, the third law says, gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. It's all about seeking out expert advice.
So don't be afraid to ask for help, right? Especially when it comes to something as important as your finances. It's like how, even today, people seek out financial advisors or investment professionals, or even just like trusted friends who are knowledgeable about money.
Exactly. Recognizing that you don't have to know everything, it's often wiser to just leverage the expertise of others, especially when it comes to complex topics like investing.
Right. So the fourth law cautions us. Gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar, or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Sounds like a warning. Against chasing those, get-rich-quick schemes, or
Yeah.
jumping into investments you don't really understand.
Precisely. It's about sticking to what you know, doing your due diligence, not falling for those promises that sound too good to be true. It actually reminds me of the modern concept of investing within your circle of competence, recognizing your own limitations, focusing on areas where you actually have knowledge and experience.
It's like that saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Right? So spread your investments and avoid those risky ventures that you don't fully understand. Seems like solid advice whether you're in ancient Babylon or the modern world.
Absolutely. And then the final law tells us, gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires and investment. Wow, another long one. But it's basically warning us about unrealistic expectations and falling prey to scams.
So be realistic. Avoid those too good to be true opportunities, and don't let emotions cloud your judgment when it comes to money.
Exactly. Greed and fear, they can be powerful motivators, and they can often lead to some pretty bad financial decisions. The Babylonians understood this, and they emphasized the importance of making those rational, well-informed choices.
So these 5 laws of gold, they're all about building wealth slowly and steadily, seeking expert advice, and avoiding unnecessary risks. It's like a blueprint for financial success. That's just as relevant today as it was back then.
It really is. And it's interesting how these laws are woven into the story of Hadon Gula. Remember, he starts out as this, entitled Spendthrift Character. More interested in lavish parties than financial responsibility, but through his challenges and his experiences with Sharunada, he starts to learn the value of hard work, the importance of managing money wisely, and that satisfaction that comes from building something for yourself.
It's like a redemption arc, isn't it?
Yeah.
He goes from squandering his inheritance to actually understanding the true value of wealth and the wisdom behind building it. Does he actually end up succeeding? Or does he kind of fall back into those bad habits?
Well, the book doesn't explicitly say whether he becomes Sharunada's heir or not. It's heavily implied. The final scene shows Hadon Gula taking off all his fancy jewels, and he's riding respectfully behind Sharunada, ready to embrace this life and a purpose and financial responsibility.
So subtle but powerful. It suggests that he's finally learned those lessons, ready to apply them to his own life.
Exactly. It becomes about more than just accumulating wealth. It's about personal growth, transformation. It highlights the idea that financial wisdom, it's not just about numbers and strategies, it's also about character, making those responsible choices.
And that leads us to another key theme in the book, the power of determination. It's not enough to just know the principles. You have to actually have the willpower to put them into practice. And The Richest Man in Babylon gives us a fantastic example of this. Through the story of Dabasir.
Dabasir. His story is such a powerful reminder that it's never too late to turn your financial life around. I mean, he starts out as this successful camel trader, but ends up falling into debt and becomes a slave in Syria. Talk about hitting rock bottom.
Wow, from successful entrepreneur to slave, that had to be incredibly demoralizing. What happened? How did he get himself into that situation?
Well, it seems like he made some unwise decisions, borrowed more money than he could repair, and just ended up in a really desperate situation. But what's so remarkable about Dabasir is that he refused to let his circumstances define him.
So he had that aha moment, realized he needed to make a change. How did he even start to do that? What steps did he take to escape slavery and rebuild his life?
Well, he was incredibly resourceful and determined. He started by facing his creditors, honestly explaining his situation, and committing to a repayment plan.
I bet that was a hard conversation to have. It's never easy admitting you've messed up, especially when those mistakes have such serious consequences. Were his creditors understanding?
You'd be surprised. Most of them actually were. They appreciated his honesty and his willingness to take responsibility.
That's encouraging. Reinforces the idea that even in those really tough situations, open communication and a real commitment to making things right can go a long way. So Dabasir created a budget, started paying down those debts, and eventually earned his freedom, and even achieved financial success again.
Yes, exactly. He even documented his entire journey on those clay tablets, detailing his income, his expenses, and the progress he was making each month. He knew how important it was to track that progress and hold himself accountable.
He was like the original personal finance blogger. His story really emphasizes the power of having a plan, being disciplined, staying focused on your goals. It's a reminder that no matter how difficult things might seem, there's always a way to turn things around if you're willing to put in the work.
And his story also highlights another key theme from the book, the importance of mentorship. Remember, Debassier didn't just rely on willpower alone. He sought out guidance from Mathon, the gold lender, who taught him those valuable lessons about managing money and repaying debts responsibly.
It does seem like mentorship keeps coming up.
Yeah.
In The Richest Man in Babylon, emphasizing that importance of learning from those who have already walked the path.
Yeah.
And are willing to share their wisdom and experience.
Exactly. It's recognizing that you don't have to figure everything out by yourself.
Right.
Seeking guidance from those who have already accomplished what you're striving for, that can be incredibly valuable. And speaking of valuable insights, one of the most interesting parts of this book is how it deals with the concept of luck. Is it something we can control, or is it just random chance?
That's a question people have been debating for centuries. Definitely curious to hear what the Babylonians had to say about it. Did they have any, secret formula for attracting good luck?
They did, and their perspective on it, it's really quite fascinating. There's a whole chapter where this group of men, they get together at the Temple of Learning to discuss this elusive nature of good fortune. And right off the bat, they dismiss the idea that luck is found at those gaming tables or through random encounters.
So no lucky charms or rabbit's feet for the Babylonians. Sounds like they had a much more pragmatic view of luck.
They did. They came to the conclusion that true good luck, it isn't about chance at all. It's about recognizing and seizing opportunities.
So being prepared, having the right mindset to spot opportunities. When they come up, I guess that makes sense. If you're not paying attention or you're not in the right place at the right time, you might completely miss out on those lucky breaks.
Exactly. The Babylonians believed that men of action are favored by the goddess of good luck. So basically, those who are proactive, willing to step outside their comfort zones and really go after their goals, they're the ones who are most likely to encounter those lucky opportunities.
So you create your own luck by taking action, putting yourself out there. But how do you overcome that inertia, right? I mean, we all have those times where we hesitate or we procrastinate, even when we know we should be taking action. Did the Babylonians have any tips for that?
Their advice was pretty simple but profound. They said, when opportunity comes knocking, act promptly. Don't overthink it. Don't hesitate. Just take the leap. They understood that procrastination is like the enemy of progress, and that often. The best way to attract good luck is to just get started.
Yeah, sometimes the hardest part is taking that first step, but once you do, things start to happen and you create that momentum. That can lead to some pretty unexpected opportunities.
Exactly. It's about overcoming that initial resistance and trusting that taking action, even imperfect action, is often better than standing still. We've talked about the 7 Pures, the 5 Laws of Gold, the power of determination, even how to attract good luck. It's a lot to unpack, but I feel like there's one more key insight from The Richest Man in Babylon that ties everything together.
Yeah, I agree. It's been like this amazing journey through ancient Babylon, uncovering all these financial gems. But what's the ultimate takeaway? What's that message that Clason wants us to remember long after we've finished the book?
Well, that's where our deep dive culminates. In the next segment, we'll explore that timeless nature of these principles and how they can empower you to shape your own financial destiny. So stay with us.
We've been on quite a journey with The Richest Man in Babylon. It's incredible how these principles, written thousands of years ago, can still feel so relevant today.
Really does. Yeah, I think it speaks to the enduring power of human nature,
Yeah.
Our desires for financial security, our struggles with debt, our hopes for a better future. These are themes that have just resonated with people across cultures and throughout history.
And that's what I find so fascinating about this book. It's not just about ancient history or financial strategies. It's about understanding ourselves and our relationship with money.
Exactly. And The Richest Man in Babylon, it reminds us that the principles of building wealth aren't just for the elite or the lucky few. They're available to anyone who's willing to learn and put in the effort.
So it's not about waiting for a windfall or winning the lottery. It's about taking control of your own financial destiny, one step at a time.
Exactly. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this whole deep dive. If there's one thing you remember from all of this, it should be this. You have the power to shape your own financial future.
That's so empowering, right? It's like Clason is saying, look, you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. You can create the life you want starting right now.
Exactly. It's about embracing those 7 cures, applying those 5 laws of gold, And remembering those stories of Dabasir, of Hadangula, they show us that it's never too late to turn things around. And that even if you're starting from a place of debt or disadvantage, you can still achieve financial freedom.
So if the Babylonians, with their, clay tablets and their limited resources, could build such a prosperous civilization, imagine what we can do today with all the tools and information we have available.
I know, it's mind-blowing. We have financial education, investment platforms, budgeting apps. The resources are endless. It's all about using them and putting those Babylonian principles into practice.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the question I want to leave you with is, what action will you take? Based on what you've learned today, what's one small step you can take right now to start building your own Babylonian fortune?
It doesn't have to be anything huge. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles, it all starts with a single step. Maybe it's setting up a budget, automating your savings, or picking up a book about investing. The key is to just take action and keep moving forward.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the wisdom of the richest man in Babylon. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Like and subscribe for more deep dives.